Summary of the poem The Second Coming by W. B. Yeats. The Second Coming by W. B. Yeats is a powerful and haunting poem that reflects the poet's fears about the chaos and changes of the 20th century. Written in 1919, after World War I, the poem expresses a sense of dread about the collapse of traditional systems and the rise of a frightening new era. Using vivid images and symbols, Yeats creates a dark and unsettling mood throughout the poem. The poem begins with the image of a widening gyre, a spiral that grows larger and more unstable, representing how history moves in cycles. Yeats believed that each cycle eventually falls apart, leading to a new one. The falcon, a symbol of humanity, no longer listens to the falconer, who represents guidance or order. This shows how humanity has lost its direction. As a result, things fall apart and the center cannot hold, meaning the foundations of society, morality, and stability are breaking down. The phrase mere anarchy describes a world filled with chaos, where innocence and order are drowned by destruction. Yeats paints a bleak picture of the time, with phrases like the blood-dimmed tide symbolizing violence and war, and the ceremony of innocence is drowned, showing the loss of purity and virtue. He highlights the imbalance in society. Good people, the best, are unsure and passive, while bad people, the worst, act with dangerous passion and confidence. In the second stanza, Yeats introduces the idea of the second coming, a term traditionally linked to the return of Christ to save the world. However, Yeats gives it a dark twist, imagining a terrifying new force emerging instead. From Spiritus Mundi, or the collective human imagination, Yeats envisions a monstrous figure with the body of a lion and the head of a man, with a blank and pitiless gaze. This creature represents a cruel and uncaring new order that will replace the old world. The image of the desert and circling birds adds to the feeling of desolation and fear. Yeats suggests that the 2,000 years since Christ's birth, described as 20 centuries of stony sleep, are now disturbed by a rocking cradle, symbolizing the arrival of this horrifying force. The poem ends with the question, "What rough beast slouches towards Bethlehem to be born?" Bethlehem, where Christ was born, is now the destination of this beast, but instead of salvation, it brings destruction and chaos. The poem has 2 stanzas of irregular length, reflecting the theme of disorder and unpredictability. The rhythm and meter are uneven, creating a haunting and fragmented tone that mirrors the poem's message. Yeats uses powerful and symbolic language to explore themes such as the collapse of civilization, the rise of chaos, and the inevitability of change. The Second Coming is a timeless reflection on the fragility of human society and the dark forces that shape history.
Line-by-line explanation of the poem The Second Coming by W. B. Yeats.
Line 1. Turning and turning in the widening gyre. The poem begins with the image of a widening gyre, which represents a spiral or vortex expanding outward. This symbolizes the breakdown of order as the current cycle of history reaches its chaotic end. Yeats believed history moves in cycles, and as the gyre widens, it loses coherence and control. Line 2. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. The falcon, a metaphor for humanity, has strayed too far from its guiding force, the falconer, who symbolizes authority or divine guidance. This suggests a disconnect between humanity and the values or principles that once directed it. Line 3. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. This line emphasizes the collapse of stability and order. The center, symbolizing societal or moral foundations, has lost its power to bind and sustain, leading to chaos and disintegration. Line 4. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. As order disintegrates, anarchy, the absence of structure and control, spreads. The word mere underscores how pervasive and overwhelming this chaos has become. Line 5. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed and everywhere. The imagery of a blood-dimmed tide suggests a flood of violence and destruction overtaking the world. The tide is symbolic of historical events like wars or revolutions that engulf humanity. Line 6. The ceremony of innocence is drowned. This line laments the loss of purity and virtue, which are overwhelmed by the chaos and violence of the age. Traditional ideals and innocence are no longer sustainable in such a turbulent time. Line 7. The best lack all conviction, while the worst. This reflects Yeats's belief that good people are paralyzed by doubt and indecision, unable to act with confidence. Meanwhile, those with harmful intentions are filled with unrelenting zeal. Line 8. Are full of passionate intensity. The worst individuals, driven by their destructive convictions, dominate because they act with confidence and intensity, further worsening the state of chaos. Line 9. Surely some revelation is at hand. The speaker senses that a momentous event or change is imminent, akin to a revelation or prophecy about the future of humanity. Line 10. Surely the second coming is at hand. Yeats evokes the Christian concept of the second coming of Christ, which traditionally signifies salvation and the establishment of divine order. Here, however, it carries an ominous tone, hinting at a darker transformation. Line 11. The second coming. Hardly are those words out. The repetition of the second coming highlights the speaker's astonishment and dread. Before the thought is fully formed, a new and disturbing vision takes shape. Line 12. When a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi. Spiritus Mundi refers to the collective subconscious, where universal symbols and archetypes reside. The poet sees a vision arising from this shared source of human imagination. Line 13. Troubles my sight, somewhere in sands of the desert. The vision is unsettling and takes place in a desert, symbolizing desolation and spiritual barrenness, reflecting the state of the world. Line 14. A shape with lion body in the head of a man. The vision is of a monstrous creature resembling the Sphinx, with a lion's body, representing power and primal instincts, and a man's head, signifying intellect, albeit detached from morality. Line 15. A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. The creature's gaze is indifferent and unfeeling, like the sun, which shines relentlessly without regard for life or death. This emphasizes the inhuman and terrifying nature of the beast. Line 16. Is moving its slow thighs, while all about it. The creature's slow and deliberate movements convey inevitability and unstoppable force, while its presence dominates the desert landscape. Line 17. Real shadows of the indignant desert birds. The circling birds symbolize death and decay, as they are often associated with scavengers waiting to prey on the remnants of destruction. Their indignation suggests disapproval or unease with the monstrous vision. Line 18. The darkness drops again, but now I know. The vision fades, and the speaker is left with a chilling realization. The darkness symbolizes both literal obscurity and the metaphorical despair accompanying this revelation. Line 19. That 20 centuries of stony sleep. This line refers to the 2,000 years since the birth of Christ, described as a stony sleep, symbolizing dormancy or a period of relative stability. Line 20. We're vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. The cradle, traditionally a symbol of birth and hope, is here associated with the awakening of a nightmare. This suggests that the new era being born will bring terror rather than salvation. Line 21. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last. The rough beast symbolizes the monstrous force heralding the new era. Its time has arrived, fulfilling the inevitable cycle of history's progression. Line 22. Slouches towards Bethlehem to be born? Bethlehem, the birthplace of Christ, is invoked ironically. Instead of a savior, this new beast brings chaos and destruction. The creature slouches, suggesting a grotesque and ominous movement, marking the birth of a dark age.
About the poet. William Butler Yeats was born on June 13, 1865, in Dublin, Ireland. He was one of the most prominent poets of the 20th century and a key figure in the Irish literary revival. Yeats's early works were influenced by Romanticism, but over time, he adopted symbolism and modernist techniques. His poetry often explores themes of Irish nationalism, mysticism, politics, and the passage of time. Yeats was deeply involved in Ireland's cultural and political life, serving as a senator in the Irish Free State and supporting the country's independence movement. His personal life, including his unrequited love for Maud Gonne, also shaped much of his writing. Yeats won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1923 for his poetic expression of imagination and the artistic integrity of the Irish spirit. He passed away on January 28, 1939, leaving behind a legacy of deeply symbolic and influential works.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.